Hey guys, it's James Reddy here from the Escape Route with Norm Hann. We're out on an awesome day, a little bit of overcast but calm waters, and we're doing a little bit about paddleboard touring. So what we'd like to do is talk about some of the gear that gets used and how to use it. At the Escape Route, we've been getting people outfitted for the mountains and for paddleboarding now for 3 decades. I'm that gray. And we love getting good gear and helping people understand how to use the gear. And we also love working with experts like Norm, who, if you want to be safe, if you want to learn about how to use that gear in the field, there's nobody better. So what we're going to do today, Norm, if this catch me, tell me if I'm forgetting anything, but our plan is to kind of run through 3 things. We'll talk about the safety gear that you would want to bring on a touring trip like this, talk about the sleeping arrangements, so your tents, your tarp, your hammock, whatever it is, and then about the cooking arrangements. There's lots more than that, and going with an expert like Norm will help you figure that out, but that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think we're excited to show everybody some of the gear that we brought along for SUP touring.
All right, let's get to it.
So today we've got a 12.6 Red Paddle Co. Voyageur. It's 32 inches wide. You may be touring on something a little bit longer or different dimensions. I just want to go through some of the key things we need to be thinking about when we're loading up a touring board. So one of the things you want to think about is keeping that weight low on the board. So try not to load your gear up too high because it effectively raises the center of gravity on the board and makes the board less stable. So keep that weight low. Second thing you want to think about is trying to keep most of the heavier weight up front and closer to the feet. So if we have a look at how I've loaded the board here, there's different ways of doing it, but I usually like to put my sleeping kit on the tail of the board. We've got our spare pump, and then I've got an extra 3-piece paddle. And so this could be gear here that you're not going to access sort of throughout the day. End of the day, I grab my sleeping kit, and that's when I'm going to use that. The other thing I like to do is have a little bit of space on the deck so I can move my feet around, or I can sit down on, on those longer touring days and put my back against the gear. As we move up to the front, thinking about how we're weighting the board, most of the volume in these touring boards are from the feet forward in this section here. So this is where you really want to be loading the heavier weight. So on the board here, I've got some water. If you're on a longer tour and there's not a lot of water access, you may be carrying a 10-liter dromedary bag or something like that. Water is very heavy. So I like to keep that water closer to the feet. Next is my lateral dry bag. So I like this bag here for easy access to some of my safety equipment, extra clothing, food, etc. Something maps, compass, things I need to use consistently throughout the day. Right in behind that or in front of that is the food. So food tends to be one of the heavier items that you're going to have on touring. But of course, as your trip goes on, that food weight gets less and less. But I like to have that fairly close to the feet as well. And then finally, up at the front, we've got clothing. Clothing tends to be light. And again, any extra emergency clothing I may have is going to be right here where I can access it easily. So that's how we like to load the board up. The third thing is make sure your gear is tied down well. So the way I start loading a touring board is I actually take all the bungee cord off. And then I put my bags and I weight my board properly where I want it. And then I re-strap all of that bungee on there. One of the things I like to do is actually carry extra bungee cord. So in this case, I put an extra line on here and I like to attach it to the handle. So if you've got a handle on your touring board, it's a really great attachment point and you can get that weight closer to your feet. So I set up this little V system on the board here, and it's really easy to stuff gear under there, and it's actually going to stay down. So I've got my emergency communication in here, and it's really easy for me to put that gear under, and that's not going to go anywhere. So if it gets rough and windy out there, or if you happen to capsize, you want to make sure that all of that gear stays on there. So just to summarize again, keep that weight nice and low on your board. Keep the majority of the weight closer to your feet and at the front of the board. And then the third thing is make sure that it's tied down really well. And then you're good to go.
And now let's talk about the safety gear that comes along with touring. Of course, when you're on the water with your paddleboard, you're always going to have your life jacket with you. You're going to have a leash and use it. Those are two probably the most safety-oriented pieces that are in your tickle trunk every day. But now we're talking about the touring gear. So let's focus on kind of the communications and that side of things, Norm. So what do you have?
Yeah, one of the things we need to be able to do safety-wise out there is we need to be able to communicate with people. So I carry 3 communication devices when I'm in a touring situation. The first one, if I'm in an area that has cell coverage, is I've got my cell phone with me. You want to make sure you've got cell coverage with that. Some phones die out when they get cold, so be aware of that. And if you don't have a waterproof phone, then you should have a waterproof case. So that's one line. As I start to go remote and get out onto the ocean, the next form of communication I have is a VHF radio. So this allows me to communicate with boats that are out there, call in search and rescue if I need it. Hopefully I don't. And then the other nice thing about these is that you can get a weather report. So you can get the weather from Environment Canada and see what's happening if you're remote because you don't have cell coverage. And then my final line of safety communication is I carry a DeLorme inReach. So you do need a subscription with this, but I am able to text. It is a satellite communicator, and I can text through my phone or I can text through this unit. So I've got 3 lines of communication: satellite, inReach, I've got the VHF radio on the ocean, and then I've got cell phone if we have cell coverage and you're local.
Now with Norm, you mentioned that VHF, so this is kind of my bag of goodies. Same thing. The nice thing about VHF is channel 16 is that regular marine communication. Other boaters on a sound like this are going to be your first line of aid and support. So channel 16, don't forget how important that is. Whistle, I didn't mention the other safety gear. Your life jacket should always have a whistle on it, but that's on the outside of my little safety pack, just in case I needed that for some reason. Norm, you wisely mentioned the idea of cell phones dying out on you. So if you are going out for a couple of days, very good idea to bring some sort of alternate power source. This is a Goal Zero item. You may have a solar panel, a small guide 10 solar panel, another really good tool to have. Because a cell phone with no batteries is not much use. And then kind of the idea of, don't forget your cables, you will need that. The idea of the 10 essentials when you go out at any time is important, but even more so on the water. So as we kind of get into that, this particular item, this little headlamp, obviously handy to have. This one is quite nice. It turns into a lantern when you're out at night. So kind of a good thing to have with you, of course. Then the idea into here, I'm just kind of digging different things out. Those are binoculars. They're not really a 10 essential or safety gear, but binoculars and being able to cast bigger vision. If you're in tight and you want to see the sea state or something like that, probably a helpful thing.
I've used them numerous times to try and see what the sea state is like further away from me. So they are handy from that standpoint. Certainly wildlife might not want to land on that shore that has the grizzly bear on it. So that's safety.
These are kind of nice too. These are Knox. They're quite durable and waterproof, so kind of a useful tool to have, though not necessarily one of the 10 essentials. Then as we get into this, inside here, you're looking at little items that may become very, very important. So Norm mentioned them beforehand. So I've got my VHR, my Garmin inReach, so that same sort of a concept. A knife, good idea. This is a tool knife, so it's got everything in it, so a Gerber. I'm a big fan of Visions as well. So in this little case, I have a pen launcher, and inside there are flares as well as bear bangers. May become an issue, so let's be set for it. That's what kind of safety is. Exactly. And then also in this waterproof case is this, which is a fire starter. So a little bit of a fire starter and some sort of I've got always 3 lighters with me pretty much, but this little one, great in wind situations or quite good in the water. So important to have these little things. They can probably just make your life a little bit more comfortable, but they may save it and they may make a big difference. So safety gear that is useful for every day is nice as well. And then, of course, in the dry bag is some sort of warm gear. If you do take a dump and you're in the water, and you are, sorry, a little potty humor there, and you're all wet, wetness and cold weather, not a good mix. So if you can have a dry piece of gear to slip on that's got some wind resistance, again, could be a lifesaver. And then lastly is this first aid kit. That's pretty detailed first aid kit in here. There's SAM splints and all the other little things, safety blankets and the little ouch pads, but other things that may make a big, big difference for you. So the 10 essentials, important at any time, but when you're on the water, even more so. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good rundown of some of the gear. So again, you really want to think about the what ifs out there. So if something happens, how do you look after yourself when you're remote? How do you keep yourself warm and dry? Of course, carrying some extra food and extra water you're going to have with you as well. And something you want to think about from a stand-up paddleboarding side of things is what's your repair kit? And generally, I don't have too much in my repair kit. It's just some really good either duct tape, electrical tape works really well, and Vessel in their first aid kits have a really great tape that works well for patching up holes on boards till you can get back and get it fixed. So yeah, nice rundown.
Yeah, know how to use your gear. Having it doesn't necessarily make you safe. Knowing how to use your safety gear is what's really important. Norm, we're touring on the ocean here, and obviously there's lots going on. Beautiful spot to be, but you do need to be aware of your surroundings. So what do you have to keep us on track?
Yeah, totally. Obviously a few key pieces for navigating around on the coast. You definitely want some type of map or chart of the area that you're paddling in for navigation. I always like to carry a Right in the Rain journal, so I keep a lot of really valuable information in here. It could be weather reports, but I really like to have my tides copied down in here if I am paddling on the ocean, and then I compare my tides up with my chart, flood currents, ebb currents. And then finally, if you experience any fog on the coast, this this garment is great because it's got the built-in GPS on it. So you can use the GPS on here to help keep you safe in the fog, and again to help you navigate while you're on the coast. So a few key items for that for navigation.
We've gone through some safety gear. Now let's talk about our actual living space. So tents and sleeping bags or hammocks or whatever the case is. So this was my bag of goodies, and inside here is pretty much all I need for a quick day tour or a one-day event, I should say. Thanks, Norm. So we're again West Coast, so I keep my tarp first thing that I can grab out of here. If it's dumping down rain and it's really nasty, don't do anything else other than slip this out, close it up, then get to your camp area and set up a dry space. Then you've got somewhere to move from, to operate from, to set your tent up underneath this tarp, then put it out there, get your gear out, whatever the case is. So if I can't afford the space on my touring setup, I always like bringing a lightweight tarp. So there's one thing. And then I keep the rest of my gear. This is a dry bag, as you see, that I'm pulling out of, but I'm not messing around because I love down sleeping bags. And a down bag is one option for you when you're out touring, but you may look at a synthetic because it's a little bit better in wet weather conditions. And it doesn't mean necessarily just rain, but it may be dew point and things like that. So I am using it down in this case, and you'll see with this system, I've got everything inside this little setup. So it's an air purge dry bag, and as we open this up, you'll see a few little bits. So that's a -1 down sleeping bag. So that's part of the package for me. Then inside here is a sleeping pad. So this is from an X-Ped. It's their synthetic ultralight mat. So that makes the other component of my kind of sleep system. And then to be comfortable, touring in our areas here, there's always lots of trees around. So this is a hammock. So this is a super comfortable item, especially when you marry it up with some sort of a pad like that. People who sleep in hammocks alone, really only worthwhile in kind of 16 degrees Celsius and up. If it's 16 or below, you get a really cold back. So you need some sort of insulation, whether it's a blue close cell foam or a synthetic mat like this, that's a good thing. So there's my hammock. And then again, I live in a rainforest. So this is a tarp that goes over that hammock and actually stretches out. So if I didn't have this, then I would have this. And it's actually a very livable space. So this is kind of a hammock sleeping bag setup for my accommodations. Now, what do you have, Norm?
Yeah, so I'll just go through my system a little bit. Actually, a couple things that I like about yours, James, just how small some of the gear is getting. But you don't want to sacrifice sort of weight and how small it is for effectiveness. So you've got a really nice system. A lot of people are going to those tarp systems, which tarp and hammock systems, which work really well. You can set them up anywhere. I've got a little bit of a different system here. Some similar things. Same thing. I got the down sleeping bag. Making sure again that it's waterproof. We want to make sure our shelter is looked after. Really important for us. Thermopad, and then I've got a one-person tent here. So depending if it's just me or if I'm out with a buddy or family, I might go to a two-person tent. So that may vary in size as well. But you can get really small and you can get obviously a lot larger depending on what your gear is. And then finally for me, sort of a little extra item that I always love bringing is just an inflatable pillow. So I really want to make sure that I get a good sleep at night. And I find for me that if I've got a good pillow under my head, then I sleep really well. And this packs up well. All goes into that 20-liter dry bag, and we're good to go for that system. So you got two different types of systems that you can run.
And these are both kind of solo systems, as Norm, you mentioned. If you're going out with a group of friends, be it 2 or 3 people, you're going to split up that gear. So if you've got a 3-person tent, one person will carry the fly, one person will carry the shelter and poles.
Yeah.
One of the issues sometimes, don't forget, you need to think ahead. Where are you going to pitch that 3-person tent? Or if you're out with a group of 6, you've got a 6-person tent. Well, that takes a big footprint. So do you have flat areas to do that? Here in Howe Sound, you wouldn't have a lot of those flat areas. So you need to kind of think ahead and plan your living accommodations as well. And now let's talk about kind of the nice side of camping, the food side of things. So Norm talked about his little guilty pleasure of the pillow. Mine, little blue close L foam, protect my scrawny little bump. And then we get into some of the other goodies. So obviously being warm is an important thing, and being well fed is the other side of it. So calories and that intake is really important. You may often want to stop for a little brew up of some tea or something like that. So jet boil system, Norm, I think you use the same as this.
Yeah, I use the exact same system.
Same system.
Yeah.
MSR has their reactor system or the wind burner, both great setups. So as you saw, there's my pot. This is a flux ring underneath here. So what this does is this keeps the heat from being blown away. So this little flux ring connects through here. We've got a quick, easy system, connects to the fuel, and you've got your system set to go. You're gonna need your water. So a Nalgene bottle, easy to scoop water with. Water's an interesting component because, water is key to life. How you treat that water is important too. So whether you are using pristine tablets, something like that,
or aqua tabs, I'll use.
A lot of people don't really like those because they think of some iodine contents and things like that, which is legit. So you may want to use something along this line. So this is from MSR, just a micro shot. So this goes into your water source. It takes, I can't remember, it's something like 60 pumps to get a liter. It's actually quite quick.
Small too and light.
Awesome, yeah, small and light, which is the key thing for touring. So there's your water system. So an Nalgene bottle and some sort of filtration, whatever you choose to use. There again, another matches. So in a waterproof case. So important component to our world. I then spent a lot of time, Norm, making you a very fancy dinner.
Good.
Okay.
My favorite.
Yeah, your favorite. So this would be from Backpackers Pantry: stroganoff, egg noodles, beef, and mushrooms. We kind of joke around with some of this stuff, but the calorie content is really quite important here because that's what keeps you warm. You're putting a lot of energy out, potentially touring, sleeping at night. So think about these things when you buy them. There's lots of different options out there. Alpinair, Backpackers Pantry, Refuel. They're a few of the ones that we carry.
Yeah, I think these companies have done a really fantastic job with the food. They are calorie dense. So for me personally, I like to do really big days on the water. And so I don't want to spend a ton of time dealing with food when I get to the campsite. And, you know, the jet boil is fast. The water comes boil quick. We get the food going. And I've got that food in me pretty quick so I can get a good night's rest and get ready for the next day. So this is a system I use, and I really like it for big multi-day tours.
You may not want to live on this for months on end, but and there are a lot of people who have way more skills than I do. My wife is awesome at rehydrating and dehydrating things. So you may choose your own meals, but this is an option that's out there for you. So there's a couple of things to think of. And then your pots and pans and all that side of thing is another component. You can certainly just eat out of that bag. This is a great little system. I love these, the Fair Share mugs. This one's from GSI, and it's a collapsible Fair Share, as you can see. So that pokes out through here. That's a good size mug. Radiated inside, so I can see if I have to pour certain amounts of water into something, whatever the case is. Silicone, so if it is hot liquid in it, I can still hold it. And as you saw, it compresses the nose space.
Yeah, this is again same thing I use. Mine doesn't have the handle, but I really like how it compresses, and that's all I roll with. I've got one of those. I've got a spoon, and I've got a insulated mug, and that's Yeti mug or something.
This is another guilty pleasure. Is the big mug. You know, this is the sort of thing that really helps you. Camping is about being fun, enjoying life. So if this is what it takes, you know, sacrifice something else and bring a nice thermos.
Good.
Yeah.
Good system.
And then what else is in the little goodie bag here? Probably not much. Again, I'm a big fan of squishy collapsible things. So be it a granola in the morning or whatever the case is, you may choose to use this, or just stick with your one system, as Norm mentioned earlier. Pot there, and that's it. Bit of cutlery. Yeah. So that's kind of my system of food and staying warm. Really, that caloric content and good water levels is really an important thing.
Yeah, and I think, it's a great system. It's nice and light. Obviously, you're going to think about how many days you're out touring for. So if you're just going for an overnighter or 2 nights, the amount of food that you're going to bring is going to vary. Obviously, the amount of fuel that you're going to bring as well. I really like these small ones that actually fit in the jet foil. But if you're going on longer days, you're going to get, bring some extra fuel. So even if you're out for a couple extra days longer than you anticipated, maybe something came up, then, we're able to stay warm and boil up some water. And
an extra fuel canister is a really good thing for 2 reasons. One, maybe you're out longer, maybe it's really wet and you want that extra warm drinks. But canister management is something to remember as well. These, when they are flowing gas, they end up frosting, as you will see. So different systems have regulators and stuff to help them flow good, proper fuel. But it's a really good idea. Keep your second canister, put it in a pocket, keep it warm. And then if one freezes up, so this one doesn't work any longer, I can take it out, warm it up, just pull that other canister out and keep going. So canister management worth thinking about as well.
Yeah, and with all of these systems that we've showed you today, I think one of the things you should do is go out for a test run. So instead of going out on that big, 7-day trip with all your new gear, make sure you go out for an afternoon or an overnighter close to home. Test out all the gear so you know how to use it, it's working properly, and you just build some comfort with that new gear that you may have.
Guys, so that's it. We've kind of talked about some safety gear. We've talked about kind of your tent setup, your accommodations. We've talked about kind of food and food preparations and nutrition. There's a lot of adventuring to do on our coast. If we can help you with the escape route to get to the gear so you can get out there, that would be great. Norm, knowledge provider.
We looked at sort of how to set up your touring board and how to carry that gear once you've got it on your board. And I think the number one goal out there is to stay safe and make sure you're planned out for that adventure.
Yeah, awesome. So look after yourselves, have fun, go paddling.
Enjoy.